My studies have taken me to India twice, intensified study in the asana training, which is the movement of the body, in the Praanayaama training, which is the movement of the pranic energy in the body via the mechanics of the lungs. I am in no way an expert on any of those topics. However, my enthusiasm and my desire to learn more on that topic, which is the topic of my interest, makes the subject one that I wish to share very readily with others. Having experienced many of the benefits that come from the practice of the Hatha principle, which is the movement of the body, and from its most important aspect in that movement, which is the breath. So today's presentation, since I have given this type of pranayama meditation for the last 2 years, today's is going to be a different approach. There is much to give on the subject. I cannot possibly give all on the subject in an hour, but I am going to attempt to share with you, first of all, why we would consider pranayama as a method towards this meditation. And what is meditation? First, to understand why it is you want to meditate and how it is that you do meditate. What are the techniques or types, or should we say, the technique of doing the meditation. I'm going to share with you what is prana and pranayama. And then going to close this presentation after I've shared some other interesting aspects of what is actually going on with prana in the body and through its two channels in the body. We will have a practical application of pranayama. Understand, however, even though this is a meditation of pranayama, you will not truly experience what it really is in pranayama. Because true pranayama, true conscious pranayama, that in itself leads to the awareness and direction of concentration, meditation, and contemplation. The mechanical aspects of pranayama cannot do it. It's at the point when you cease to have mechanical function or the awareness of this function of the in, hold, out breath, where the actual realization of prana, this energy, comes into the body. This is a universal energy. This is an energy that is about us. It cannot be tasted, it cannot be perceived by our finite or five senses. But nevertheless, it is about us. And we attempt, oh so poorly, we attempt to capture more of it into our bodies via the techniques, as they are called in the Hatha principle. So to begin with, what is meditation? Because we're going to lead there and then end with a practice of the meditation of breathing. So what is meditation? Basically, there are no two authors, no two lecturers that can give you one definition of meditation. It's an impossibility. Because meditation becomes a personalized, experiencing type of thing. And once you have personally experienced it, to describe it to another, again, would just be mere words for that individual until they have experienced it. But I can share some classical writers with you on the subject of what is meditation, and you will find that they give very clinical, very succinct clinical definitions of the process of meditation. And the more you as students in meditation can learn the process of how to, we have so many books in the United States now of how to do this, how to do this and that. So the first definition is going to be by Paul Brunton. And he was born in 1898, and he's written many books. He is deceased, and some of his books was The Hidden Teachings Beyond Yoga, The Secret Path, The Search in Secret India, and so on. And he talks about the over-self. Now, many authors will try and identify what it is that is above and beyond the physical you, that which sits in this room at this very moment, your physical body, your emotions, and your mind. You brought them with you. You didn't leave your emotions out swimming and the mind somewhere else. You brought them right with you. So Paul Brunton calls this higher aspect of oneself the overself, and he says, he who would attempt to know his overself must learn to retire into his mind as a tortoise retires into his shell. The attention which has hitherto been dissipated on a succession of external objects must now be concentrated on a single focus. This sounds very easy, doesn't it? Very, very easy. Just get into a single focus of that attention span. Eliminate the outer distractions that constantly pull the mind back and forth. And before you know it, you're becoming very tired, only because of a mind that is constantly ricocheting off of the wall, like a ping pong ball. Mani Sadhu, an author that has written 2 excellent books, one on concentration and one on meditation. And I would highly recommend, if you are not a student of meditation, or if you're a new student who really would like to learn how to meditate, start out with the concentration book, because it's the centering of the mind, focusing the mind and attention to a specific object. And then go into the meditation after you thoroughly understand what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Mani Sadhu says in his meditation book, it is the active, unswerving direction of your awareness upon a chosen theme, without any deviation or forgetting of it, and holding it before your mind's eye for the required time. These statements are very clearly stating certain inherent techniques of how to do it. You need nothing more but that statement. And all you have to do is totally understand the statement. It is the active, unswerving, which means active. You are not sleeping in an upright position. Unswerving, that ping pong aspect, get rid of it. Unswerving direction of your awareness upon a chosen theme, which means you must choose something to think about. If this is what we call bija meditation, that is meditation with thought, with seed. And so it's a chosen theme without any deviation or forgetting of it. If you've ever attempted meditation, you can see how difficult it is to stay with the thought, because something pulls you off. It is no different than when you're trying to accomplish any task in your own homes or at work. And you start one job and you start pulling off to another job, and then your eyes catch something else and you're going over here and over here and over here, and you finally come back after a couple hours to the original place. And you look at that job and you say, oh my, I hate to do it, it takes so long. Of course it takes so long, because you didn't finish it when you were there. How ridiculous. And so we have to actually stop this type of pulling ourselves off, and we're doing it ourselves, understand it. Nothing else is doing it. We are allowing it to happen because of our unawareness that it is happening. Once you become aware of what you actually are doing, that's the first step of stopping it. Going on to another quotation, and this is the one I like the best. It's by Madame Blavatsky. When you run into different authors who state different things on meditation, you tend to find a statement that bespeaks your meditation. And I like the one by Madame Blavatsky, because not all authors will put in a spiritual statement in that meditation statement. Some authors will be more clinical and will direct it on how to, and some will have different ways of looking at it. Saradarian, in his book on meditation, talks about the solar angel. Paul Brunton talks about the overself. I'm not too fond of the solar angel statement. That doesn't speak to me at all. But Madame Blavatsky says that meditation is the inexpressible longing of the inner man for the infinite. I think that's great. God intoxicated. It's the same thing as Renee said. The inexpressible longing of the inner man for the infinite, by Madame Blavatsky. And so now that you have some concept of what it is that you're supposed to be doing in channeling your mind energies in the processes of meditation, and understand that the body, the controlling of the body, is the easiest step to meditation. We can master that quite readily. But when you're left alone then, after you have seated the body, and then withdraw into the mind, the troubles really begin. And so going into now at this point, what is prana? I think describing meditation is much easier. Because prana, when you look it up in many of the Hatha Yoga books, in the Secret Doctrine itself, you begin to realize that they are having a great difficulty in even describing what prana is. And so the statement of what is prana, many of the books will say that it is as difficult to explain and to define as it is to define and describe God. Now you're starting to realize the fact that I probably brought the word God in, that prana must be a little bit more than you actually are aware of. And then when we come into pranayama, that means then, if it is so difficult to explain what prana is, then by the yama technique, the technique of actual function between inhalation, hold, and exhalation, that possibly we can start manipulating this creative energy. We can become more full with it. And so in the statement here, what is prana? Prana is energy. It is physical, it is mental, it is intellectual, it is sensual, it is spiritual, it is cosmic energy. All vibrating energies are prana. All physical energies, such as heat, light, electricity, magnetism, everything is prana. It is the hidden or potential energy in all beings. Prana, in our work with the Hatha Yoga principle, is usually considered breath. And so pranayama is an art, and it is a technique to make the vibratory organs to move and to extend and to expand intentionally by eliminating the negative or toxic aspects of the body, and by purifying the environment within and without. We're not only talking about the external pressures, but we are also talking about the internal and external when we talk about pranayama. And so in the pranayama technique, it consists in the long sustained inhalation, hold, and exhalations. Note the word long sustained. This is the key to partly to realizing what pranayama is. It is technique. Once one learns the technique, and there are many techniques. My last trip to India 2 years ago, I came home with a partial list, as it was listed in my notebooks, of over 18 pranayamas. And when one realizes that you start running out of variables, inhalation through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the mouth, out through the nose, in through the left, out through the right, into the right, out through the left, pretty soon you start realizing that you're going to run out of techniques. But yet this partial list told me that the subject is hardly uncovered even in some of the textbooks of Hatha Yoga. And rightly so. I don't think that we need to complicate the practices of pranayama, because it doesn't take long for a teacher to realize that there are only, even in these partial lists of 18, there's really only 3 or 4 that are the key ways of doing it. And I think that's very important, because when you start studying meditations, and there are as many meditations as there are breaths in man, you start to realize, after diligent study, diligent research into the topic of meditation,
that pretty soon a certain pattern starts coming forth, that this is usually used by most meditators, and this is used, and this is used. In the subject of pranayama, we also have this, where a certain pranayama seems to be the most beneficial for this type of realization or getting the results that you want. And I think I've narrowed them down to about 3 or 4 different techniques. If you spent the rest of your lifetime working on these techniques and diligently working on from what we call a very shallow breath to a long extended breath, you would find great benefit just from those 3 and 4. In other words, you don't have to keep seeking out new statements on the subject if you find that what you have is real, because it will work. We can tire ourselves out running all over the place trying to find more and more and more, when all along we have what it is that we need before us. It's like hopping from one guru to another guru to another guru, to one group to another group to another group. And you do begin to realize, wait a second, what I've already had in my hands, there is a kernel of truth in this. And if you spent your time doing that, it would, in time, prove results. Nothing is ever wasted. Any energy put out by you must have a corresponding result to you. Nothing is ever lost. Oh, you may not get the result you want, because the system seems to know what it is you need at the moment. And so any physical projection of yourself in action, any emotional projection of yourself through the feelings, any thought pattern projected, always has a corresponding result back to you. So in the practice of meditation, if you practice meditation, there will be results. The technique of pranayama is quite simple. It is inhalation, it is gentle hold, that's for a beginner, and it is exhalation. This is considered beginning or preliminary breathing. If one is to go into intermediate breathing or what we call advanced breathing, you would then have inhalation, hold, exhalation, hold. Madame Blavatsky says in The Secret Doctrine, and she has quite a lot to say about pranayama, about hatha yoga, about raja yoga and its relationship between hatha yoga and raja. She says that pranayama is the death of breath. The death of breath. And when you read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is one of the old source material books, you find that also they are making this same statement, that it is in the holding of the breath. They say very subtly. Most of this information is very quietly stated, and it takes someone who is truly interested in getting at the depth of those statements to realize where it really lies. And it just does not lie in simple in, hold, out, but it is in the point of the death of breath, meaning where you actually eliminate all processes of oxygen in the system and actually eliminate the use of the 2 nadis, as they are called, which is a column or a channel that reside on the side of the spinal cord or the column. And at the point of holding the breath, the Ida and Pingula cease the activity along those channels and then proceed to go through the center channel, which is Sushumna. It does not happen readily, and it takes many, many years of diligent practice for anyone to start realizing any of those type of realizations. The first realization that pranayama gives an individual is the wellness, the strength of the body. It makes you very strong. And this is, I think, is very important. I've always thought, and I still feel today, that one can aspire to all the spiritual consciousness that you want, all of the realization of that spirituality that you hunger for. But if your physical body is hurting, if you are in pain, you can't reach it because you are rooted in the body. The body is keeping you down, it's holding you down. And so if one can use the pranayama principle of releasing and stabilizing, producing the equilibrium of balance within the body, you then have a better chance in this body in time to reach what you are aspiring for. I'm a firm believer that one works with what you have. And it's at the physical level. It's right here. And so pranayama is that type of a topic. I'm going to go into some charts to show you where pranayama fits into the Raja concept. My chart on the right here showing the 8 steps to meditation success. And these are the classical 8 limbs to the Patanjali Sutras. Yama, the self-restraint, that which you should try to eliminate from the personality. These are negative traits. The yama, which is the niyama, which is the things that one should incorporate as positive directions in your life. The asana is the posture of how you choose to sit. And in pranayama practices, the only time one uses it in a supine position, to be on your back, that is, would be if you are in a situation where you have to be in bed. But as is in all forms of meditation, an upright seated position is the required position. However, there's meditation in motion. Hatha yoga is known to be this. Tai Chi is meditation in motion. Taking a walk and being deep in study, deep into your mind, that is meditation, because you are totally within the narrowing confines of the subject matter that you're thinking about. But if we're going to have what we call a controlled meditation, it's an upright seated position. The pranayama is the control of the breath. Now, the control of the breath in the Raja principle is completely different than in Hatha. Hatha yoga goes more into technique. The technique of pranayama here is just to become aware of the fact that in time, with a set of a rhythm of breathing in, hold, and out, that in time the breath ceases to be. You are not breathing. You are not aware of the breathing. The breath becomes so quiet that you cannot even perceive any activity going on. Then the control of the senses, leading to concentration, meditation, and contemplation. Note that the control of the breath is number 4 on top of 5. Everything in this list is listed so that it acts as a control to the next step. If you practice control of breath, that in turn will control your senses. If you practice right posture, that in turn will put the proper pressures along the spine, the musculoskeletal you, which will give much better control of breathing. So the pranayama here is the control of the 5 senses. It always has been that technique because it is a technique that will in time produce these changes with the personality. Pranayama is stated in section 2. There are 4 sections in the Patanjali Sutras, 196 statements. Section 2, number 49, when that exists. Patanjali is stating, because number 48 was the topic of asana, the seated position. And he says of the seated position it should be steady and pleasurable. He does not say sitting on the floor in full lotus should be steady and pleasurable. He doesn't say sitting on the floor or sitting in the chair. He gives no indication of anything. He says the seated position should be steady and pleasurable. When that exists, regulation of breath is the next consideration. It is the control of the manner of movement of in-breathing and out-breathing. Simply put, very simply put, in and out. 50. The condition of the breath as external, internal, and suppressed is regulated to place, time, and number and becomes lengthy and fine. They use the word fine, as I was mentioning. It becomes as non-existent. You cannot be aware of anything that's going on. The external, internal, and suppression is the technique, and of course the numbering, the time, and place that you do the pranayama. 51, a 4th condition exists which casts aside the business of external and internal. This is an exciting statement. In many of the Patanjali Sutras, Patanjali gives, as it were, in my estimation, guarantees that if you do such and such is a result. And so he is telling you something is going to happen. He says there's a fourth condition which exists that casts aside the external and internal breathing, the mechanics that he's talking about, the mechanical aspects. And he says that pranayama 52, in consequence, the covering of the light is diminished. The covering of the light is diminished. And here's the result. And there is fitness of the mind, of concentration. Pranayama always, when I started my first statement of this lecture, always leads to conscious concentration, meditation, and contemplation. It is not just an exercise at getting more energy in the body. Although if that's what you need, that's where you begin. When we begin somewhere, it leads us ultimately to somewhere else. So the covering of the light, meaning the avidya, that which is that which we cannot perceive, leading us to vidya, which is wisdom, to knowledge, and so on. And in time, we'll have the fitness of the mind for concentration. I have an interesting chart that shows you in diagram form processes of meditation. I'm using this one also as a process to pranayama. We have 5 examples here. And these examples show a meditator, you, and you decided to sit down to do meditation in pranayama. You know a little about breathing, so you've decided that you're going to start inhaling. You're going to hold to that same inhalation count or time at which it took you to take your inhalation, and then you're going to exhale to the same number of count. It's an equal ratio. In beginning pranayama, we always start out with equal ratios, and then we get into fancier ratios. No one is ready for any of those larger numbers until you have developed some degree of control with the lungs. Here we have an example that is a very poor example. Actually, the first 3 are very poor examples. The perfect example, saying that this was a 20-minute pranayama practice. A beginner begins practice for at least 3 to 4 minutes. 20 minutes is an excellent breathing time. So here we are, straight as the arrow to its mark. This individual started the practice, and these interrupted lines here show that they wandered off and decided to do something else, possibly even got up and moved, and literally did something else with their body. And remember that they were practicing pranayama or meditation and came back very angry, talking to themselves all the time, that how could they be so undisciplined. The second example shows the breaks also, but finally they get their act together. They're getting a little angry with themselves, and I think sometimes getting tight with yourself shapes you up because you're aware that you're not doing what you have set out to do. So my question to you is then, who's in charge? Is the body in charge? I should hope not, because we should certainly be in control of the body. And so here you're starting to put it together. The third example, there are no breaks, which means you did not wander off of the topic that you have chosen or off of pranayama that you chose to do for the allotted period of time. Everything is linked to the allotted period of time, and you can't cheat yourself. That if you say you're going to sit down and breathe for 5 minutes, you better breathe for 5 minutes, because if you cut it short, I don't think of anything that can be any worse than to cheat ourselves. Set the course. Be logical with the course. If you've never done pranayama, please don't say you're going to sit and breathe for 20 minutes. It's an impossibility. No one can sustain pranayama for 20 minutes as a beginner. That's like those of you who are in my hatha yoga class in the morning at 7 in the morning, decide that you're going to do your shoulder stand for 20 minutes. You have to be very logical with your deductions and where you're going to be going. So here's the example showing no interruptions whatsoever. This example shows that halfway through, it connected. You've got the rhythm of it. It's working, okay? Here you may have started the pranayama. You've had interruptions. You've had to clear the throat, which breaks the pranayama, because this is sustained. Once you start that rhythm, it's like a cycle. It's like this. Okay? Once you start that, you do not stop it because it's building. It keeps building internal and external pressures, which ultimately will have the result. So in the beginning, it is erratic, but then it straightens out, and then at the end, you have mastered the technique of pranayama. When you get to this point, then you must learn more. Then you must do more. But by the time you reach this, you will know what to do. It comes automatically. The direction is there. On the other side, some interesting information showing what it is that is going on in the breathing. All breath in pranayama is done through the nostrils. There is some breathing through the mouth. Cleansing breaths are done through the mouth. Cooling breath is done through the mouth. Other types of breathing where we want to eliminate tight, spastic lungs, especially for those who have lung problems, will be done through the mouth. Not in and out through the mouth, but at least sometimes in through the mouth and out through the mouth, with a variety of through the nostrils. So most breathing is done through the nostrils, and here is, I'm a poor artist, so I think if you don't know, this is a nostril. If you were wondering what it was, it's not a tree, it's not a bird, it's not a butterfly, it is a nose. Okay. And on the left, your left, this left, okay, is the Ida. These are the Sanskrit words, Ida and Pingala, which are the energies that come into the body. And on the left of the nostril, that is represented by the negative aspect, negative and positive on the right. Woman is negative, not negative, negative, please, I'm not slurring woman. It's just that it's opposite positive. Positive cannot exist without negative, negative cannot exist without positive, and so on. They coexist. So on the left is woman, man is on the right. It is the cooling influence, which is represented by the moon, that is on the left side, and it is the hot influence that is represented on the right side, or the sun. These are the energies, which is called the alternate breathing. These are the energies that are constantly flowing, alternating constantly in the body. It is approximately a cycle of an hour and a half, which means at this very moment, all of us in this room will be breathing through one side of the nostrils. One side is what we call building up in pressure, the other side is decreasing. Both nostrils are functioning, but one is building up and one is decreasing. The one that's building up in pressure is the nostril that you will be aware of at this very moment. And that is the nostril that you'll feel the air and heat coming out of. Even heat, even though this is the cool side, but heat will be coming out of one side. After a while, it changes over. And the other side, which has been down, starts to come up in pressure, and the other side decreases. This is a continual flow, constantly going on, calling the alternating breath or variable breath. The cycles can change in individuals depending on the health of the individual or what is going on in the system. It can be a temporary thing. It can be just a thing that a headache can throw off, not feeling well, or what have you. But a truly healthy body is a body that is constantly functioning within the cycle correctly. Even the sunrise has a lot to do with what is controlling what nostril at a particular time of day is functioning at this very moment. And at sunrise, on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, the left nostril is operative in the morning at sunrise. And at sunrise, on Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, the right nostril is operative at sunrise. Now, this is something all of us can prove. We don't have to take the word of the author, or even as I am relating from the books I have read. There is much more going on within the energies and the variable breath that makes very interesting study. Here's another very interesting aspect. These are two human bodies, in case you're having trouble determining what they are. Two human bodies. This is the rib cage. This is the head and the neck and the shoulders and so on. What is very interesting is when you're trying to understand why should I, if you ask me the question, why should I practice pranayama? Why should I even attempt to do pranayama if I wanted to use it for meditation purposes? What am I going to get out of it? This is what a lot of students ask for. What is it going to do for me? This is what it's going to do for you. This is one of the classical things that it will do. It detoxifies the system. It purifies the physical body. It eliminates this heaviness that each and every one of us feel day in and day out. It makes a lightness in the body. If any of you have experienced what Hatha Yoga can do or what any exercise program can do, the exhilaration that enters the body after you have completed it and you maintain it for many hours and it goes into the next day because you've exercised well, know a little about what I am talking about when the body becomes very light and airy and you're whole. You're not consciously aware of high exuberance and you're not consciously aware of no energy. There is no awareness of any of the highs and the lows. And in my estimation of what is health, I have to say health is the unawareness of the personality. You just are. It's a lovely feeling. And so this represents what happens when one practices pranayama. There is said to be within us a flame. Note that I have said there is said to be within us a flame. I don't know if there's a flame. Surgeons don't cut into the abdominal cavity and say, oh, look at the pilot light. I think we'll turn it up. Or his is too hot. We'll turn it down. It is subtle. We cannot see it. But it is in the ancient text. It's in the Secret Doctrine. Blavatsky talks about this. And this flame resides in this area. And in the lower region, according to the Hatha principle, this is the area of apana, which is in terminology of the Hatha principle, which is called dirt, the residuals of toxins. Okay, that which is impure in the body, the apana. The prana resides up in the upper chest area. And there is a statement in the Hatha Yoga, and the statement actually has two followings. They seem to not be able to agree to it. That one of the statements says that prana must meet apana, and apana must meet prana. But there are just as many individuals who state that that is not valid as a statement. And so as a teacher of Hatha Yoga, I have to try and disseminate, try and come to awareness of what it is that I'm going to accept, what sounds right to me. And it's on this principle that I am a firm believer that prana must meet apana and apana must meet prana. And if this was not a fact, why am I doing some of the asanas that automatically put the two together and hold them there for the cleaning out and purification activity? And so what we have here in the red line coming down into the flame is what is called the nectar. In Hatha Yoga terminology, it's fuel. And it is very interesting to understand that they will casually, the Eastern Indian, especially my teachers, will casually say that we are given an allotment of that fuel. Now the word is correct. It says an allotment. And so if your mind follows through and says an allotment, does that mean that if I use up my allotment, is there a reserve? Nothing's mentioned about a reserve tank. There's just an allotment. If you use up the allotment, does that mean then I cease to be in this physical body? Yes, according to the Eastern Indian thought of Hatha Yoga. And so that is one of the things that in the practice of Hatha Yoga we tend to conserve that fuel. Many of the asanas, which are the positions or exercises of Hatha Yoga, tend to conserve it by closing it off. This is why in this picture I have not decapitated the head here. I show a line here that it is with a use of a chin lock where we actually close off that area and then begin the pranayama. If we eliminate the nectar from coming into the flame must exist. It will continue to exist. What does it do? It works. It works right here on the apana. It starts using whatever fuel is there, flamed by the oxygen, which is part of prana, and flamed by prana. It is the beautiful method of detoxifying the system. The flame is pointed downward here because as you inhale the downward during conscious inhalation, as you inhale, it acts as a flue in a fireplace, just goes down. On exhalation, the flame is upward on conscious exhalation. And if we do not need to turn the flame around to burn the toxins or the apana out of the system, on exhalation, we have that material that has been burned. And on the exhalation, it just goes right out of the system to be returned once more, to be utilized again. And so this is a very interesting concept of the fuel, nectar coming into the flame in the body, apana down here, and prana. How to practice proper breathing. Now, after I've given you a very quick, believe me, this is a very quick talk on the pranayama, the technique that I like to give to beginners is the complete technique of inhalation, hold, exhalation, and hold. This is considered a preliminary breathing for all beginners of pranayama. You are not expected to inhale to 15 counts, meaning 1, 2, 3. I've lost you already. Because most people are shallow breathers. They breathe here in the clavicle area instead of into the rib cage area. Most individuals have a lung capacity, if you're lucky, to 3 to 4 counts. Shallow breathers. The more shallow you are in breathing, the more apana you have in the system. The more toxic you are. The more freer the lungs are at distribution of prana, the more prana you have in the system. This is what we know that we call being full of prana. We want to be full of this life energy. The number of breaths means how many times you repeat this first counting system. 5 inhalation, and immediately exhale to 5, come back to 5, exhale, come back, and we do that 5 times. It's preliminary. It's getting your lungs to go out and in. The second phase of it is inhalation and then hold. We want to stay full of this oxygen, this prana, and then exhale, and then we come back and we repeat the cycle 5 times. And here we are now. Finally, we're arriving at what is pranayama. Inhale 5, hold 5, exhale 5, hold 5 on an empty lung. It's very difficult to hold on an empty lung. The body fights you tremendously. It doesn't know what you're doing. It doesn't quite have trust and faith in you. Maybe it knows you well enough. But this holding on a 5, the body will get very, very tight, and you must use the mind and consciously talk to yourself. Be still. Be still. I am in control. I know what I'm doing. And this is the pranayama. Coming back and repeating it 5 times. Coming out of this, for beginners, this is a beginner's technique. Coming back, we repeat the first cycle, which is 5 in, 5 out, 5 in, 5 out. So what essentially this technique is doing is getting the lungs, the air sacs, to get used to more oxygen. As you sit in this room at this very moment, all of you are breathing to a 1.5 count. You're inhaling and you're exhaling. You're inhaling and you're exhaling. That's a 1.5 count. I've always been very amazed that life can be sustained in the body with a 1.5 count breath. So what you're going to do is to bring in a higher count. This is going to be our pranayama meditation. Your eyes will be closed. If you have any reaction during the practice, take care of that reaction. If you have to swallow, if for whatever reason the body refuses to do it, stop breathing. Take a deep breath, collect your body, mind, and then start in with the count as I will be conducting it. I will conduct the whole thing. You will not be left alone. Normally in pranayama practices, an individual sits down, you start the practice, you proceed to get appraise the condition of the lungs for that day, because your lungs will be different every day. Some days for pranayama practice you can reach 15, 20 count. Some days that count is hard to reach. Some days you can even reach more. So you first appraise the body, set the rhythm, and then decide what pranayama you're going to do. Then you cease to think, you cease to count, you cease everything. You become a breathing machine until finally you are completely unaware of yourself sitting here and things start to happen. What we have here is the complete breath, and this is the breath that after one has practiced this for a while, this is the type of breathing, just giving you examples of what you would be doing. This is not alternate breathing, which is the kingly breath, where you actually do an alternate breathing, changing the rhythm. And in the Raja principle of alternate breathing is to use the technique of changing nostril breath by the willpower. In the Hatha principle, it is used through the fingers. We haven't learned this control yet. To give you an example, this is nothing more than a complete breath, very beneficial. And the first one would be to inhale to 8. You're not ready for an 8. After you've done this for a while, you'll go on to 6 and to 7 until you finally reach an 8 count. You'll hold to 4, exhale 8, hold to 4. Okay? After you've mastered that for a while, you then go into 10 inhalation, 5 hold, 10 exhalation, 5 hold. And now we start getting into the complete breath, 10 in, 10 hold, 10 out, 10 hold. Repeating the cycle continuously, getting the cycle. And after the breath starts to, after you get the rhythm, you no longer have to count. You do not have to consciously count, because your lungs can only do what they can do by the training you have set into the lungs. All right, let's begin. First of all, put the body down comfortably. When we are finished with the pranayama, I want you to maintain eyes closed, because after you have found that it has relaxed the body, I will then go into a statement by Browning, and we're going to utilize the clearer mind, because it has become clearer by the practice of pranayama, to try and concentrate in the meditation of the statement by Browning, there's an inmost center in ourselves where truth abides in fullness. And to know consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape. In opening out a way. Pranayama is one of those ways. Note, it's only one of the ways. All right, eyes closed, feet square to the floor. Shoulders relaxed. Preparing the lungs. Inhale first through the nostrils, very slowly. Inhale. Take your time, nothing is rushing you. Now I want an exhalation through the mouth. Blow it out, blow it out, blow it out. It's known as the cleansing breath. Preparing the field. Inhale again, slowly through the nostrils. Exhale through the mouth. Tell yourself that you're getting rid of the tiredness, toxicity. Inhale again. Exhale. And just relax. Close the mouth. All breath is done through the nostrils. Center the mind on the lungs, the rib cage. Watch your body as it starts to gently heave up and down. Become aware of this life in the body. Without this life, without this breath, there would be no life. We will begin. Slowly inhale to the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2. Through the nose, please. 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Continue by yourself. Begin your final inhalation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Cease from conscious control. Just breathe regularly, slowly. Just let the breath flow in as it will. And think about this Browning statement. There is an inmost center in ourselves where truth abides in fullness. and to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape. Take a deep and slow inhalation. And on exhalation, open your eyes. And so with the practice of pranayama, one slowly but diligently progresses. One can, after the practice of pranayama, include the mantra yoga, can include the jnana yoga, which is intellect, can use the bhati, which is devotion, or one can use purely pranayama as a means to reach the development and control of concentration, leading to meditation, and ultimately leading to samadhi. Thank you.